Hmm.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Cup of Football. Yes, James, I'm still laughing and having a good time because I think you should too. Don't be so.
I am having a good time.
You should be having a great time because it went well for you and
Yes,
a
it
lot
did.
of other people from Italia. But we are joined also today for the final podcast, possibly of the summer. I'll leave a question mark because we'll see. Christian Manukian is joining us to provide some analysis and stats, and so he's with us. Samuel Samuel is not here. He and Boone are celebrating in Vegas after the prediction of his Armenian cat that took Italy, and they also took it to the tape to Vegas, and they're out celebrating. So that's why they're not joining us. Maybe we'll have another. Maybe Boone will have a statement he'd like to read out.
Prepared statement.
But
meow,
a
meow,
good,
meow, meow, meow.
a good prediction by, Boone, and I think all of us. I didn't hear your prediction before, Christian, but I am assuming you also had Italy as your pick to win. Italy did win the Euros. They go from missing the World Cup 3 years ago to winning the European Championships, which is quite the turnaround. I saw people on James's favorite social media platform, Twitter, saying, "Hey, US, look at that. You can go from not making the World Cup."
Wait, USA has a shot to win the Euros?
Well, they have a shot to win the Gold Cup, and maybe at the next World Cup could do something. No, okay, we'll talk about that later.
I believe.
At least that's one person.
Yeah, maybe. But yes, Italy went to Wembley. James, you were talking about looking at the crowd and being like, "Oh, there's more people than what looks like," and you were saying maybe people sneak in. Well, those people did sneak in today. There were people literally passing by barricades, and people were in the aisles, and so who knows how many people were there, but it was a packed house, rabid atmosphere, and I got off to, well, at the time seemed like the perfect start. 2 minutes in, less than 2 minutes in, the fastest goal in a European final. Luke Shaw from Manchester United. What a turnaround for Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw already won the tournament just because he's now playing for the national team after going through a lot of difficulties. A great move by England. Harry Kane dropping deep. They went out to Kieran Trippier, who was playing wingback. They changed the formation to a 3-4-3, which had Trippier in instead of Saka. And it looked like stroke of genius as one fullback crosses it to the other fullback, who took it very well on the half volley, smashes it in, 1-0 England, 2 minutes in. It's coming home. It's already home. It's
Turn
over.
off your sets. Turn off your TV sets, everybody.
Now,
it's over.
It's an old saying, but they seemed to score too early because there was a period there at the first 20 minutes that England looked like they were going to dominate this game, and Italy was kind of on the ropes, kind of having to just deal with these England looked dangerous, and they were looking physically dominant in the midfield. But as the game went on, Italy, as you expected, just kind of grew into the game, dominated possession as we kind of thought they would. And in the second, it was 1-0 at halftime. But as I was telling James before we recorded, the second half, it seemed like there was going to be a goal. The question was it going to be England somehow countering and getting a goal that would have probably won them the tournament? Or what ended up happening, Italy just kind of threw their possession, creating chances, but then the goal came from a corner kick, not dealt with by England. Bonucci, one of the leaders at the back, and actually Chiellini was involved in the scrum, but it fell to Bonucci, who smashes it in 1-1 at the 67th minute. Now, from that point on, I'll go to both of you. Did you have any doubt at that point that Italy would not win the game from 1-1 when they equalized? Because that was a big turning point. England, had been defending, and then when you give up that goal, it's kind of like, how do we kind of turn that around? So, Christian, from that point, were you thinking this is Italy's turn or game to win?
Yeah, no doubt in my mind at that point. We were watching at church with a bunch of the church people, and I was sitting next to my dad, and I turned to my dad and I said that's the tide has just turned, because mentally England were bunkered down, hoping that they could see out a 1-0 win. It seemed like, especially as Italy grew into the game in the second half. And when that goal went in the way it went in, they almost scrambled it away, and then Bonucci was there to follow up. And had Harry Kane been slightly closer, he might have been able to nick the ball away. And for Italy to tie it up at that point, I felt was a huge psychological advantage for Italy. Now they're on level terms, and we're basically back to zero when England had spent so much energy defending for so long. So I felt pretty confident at that point, but Italy still had a lot to do at that point.
James?
Well, I was thinking that if it was going to end either in 90 or in 120, I was thinking it's probably going to be Italy. But what I was thinking was if it goes to penalties, I think England's going to win in penalties, just because of the whole repeat penalties and knockout stage factor, and the fact that they're at home, and the fact that they never win on penalties, because everything has been lined up this whole tournament for England to win. And if they're going to win, it has to be on penalties. Of course, it's penalties. That's how they'd win, right? So when it went to penalties, I was like, okay, here we go. England finally breaks their penalty duck.
Spoiler alert, it went to penalties. At first, they had to go through the rest of 90 and then extra time. In extra time, there was moments where England kind of played a little better in the second half, maybe of extra time. But England only managed, I think, maybe 2 shots on target.
Do they have a single chance other than their goal? I don't think they did.
Really. I mean, they had a couple moments where they're in and around the box. But this was the thing with England. They didn't create a lot of chances, I guess, other than the Ukraine game. They just were solid, and if they got a chance, maybe they would score it and win 1-0, And in this game, they did not lose the game in 90 or in 120, so they, that's a positive. They go through a whole tournament, and they did not lose a game. Now, that's not how you win a tournament because there's extra time and penalties. So it did go to penalties. And yes, it was shaping up. We had talked about it before, like, maybe Italy doesn't want to go to penalties because, it's the second time around. And it ended up being like, it's obviously hard to lose a final, but it was doubly cruel on England because Gareth Southgate, the manager, is like before this tournament, it's kind of known for, sadly, missing a crucial penalty for England in a Euro semifinal against Germany in England. And it was the possibility was, on the one hand, to just not only break, like you were saying, James, the duck of, the tournament drought of winning, but also to do it on penalties would have been symbolic just because of how many penalties they've lost. Now, under Gareth Southgate, they've actually had done better on penalties. They won the shootout against Colombia at the World Cup, but it did not go well. And it wasn't really Pickford's fault. He made 2 saves. He saved Belotti and he saved Jorginho to keep England alive because before that, two kicks were missed by Rashford and Sancho. Now, that's why I'm wearing this jersey, partly also because I still love Tobin Heath, but in support of the Man U contingent who were at the center of today's action. Shaw got a goal. That was exciting. Harry Maguire, somehow recovered great from an ankle injury. This will probably hurt his beginning of the season for Man U, but whatever. He took a penalty, and he actually made it after Belotti missed, which seemed to turn the advantage to England. But I still wasn't convinced because I thought, there's 2 penalties in a row. Italy seemed to have this mental toughness. It has to do with their, I think a lot of it is Chiellini and Bonucci being the leaders. Mancini's a experienced manager. And they have a great goalkeeper, too. Donnarumma's like a great goalkeeper. The next 2 kicks were also Man U players. One, Marcus Rashford. And Sancho, new Man U player. You have to put the shirt on.
So they've taken the picture with him in the jersey?
I guess not officially because he's been on duty, but it's happening. Okay. They both were actually subbed on at the end of extra time for the purpose to take a penalty. Now,
Tim Krul-esque.
Yeah, not to the same effect. But I'll ask both of you. Now, in hindsight, the decision looks bad because they both missed and both the penalties were not great. Rashford was close to being perfect. He hit the post. And then Sancho's was blocked. Now, the thought of, now the thinking is, they had no time in the game to get into the game. So they were just kind of cold. And then they took a penalty and missed. If they both make it, it's like, genius. You took off 2 guys who could have missed and you brought on 2 guys. Because Rashford, I can't remember him missing a penalty. For Man U or England, he's been a good penalty taker. I don't know about Sancho. But, Christian, for you, what's your take on that strategy of, yes, you want guys on the field to take the penalties who are historically good, but when to do it? Is it too late to bring them on in the 118th minute when they're too cold? Or is it just it had no effect and it's just one of those things that happens?
Well, I actually thought the decision to bring on Rashford specifically was bizarre because I remember that there was a string of penalties that he missed last season, and
Mm.
Pogba then missed penalties, and there was like a little mini controversy within the Man U camp about who's going to take the penalties
That was
because
before
Rashford,
Fernandez, yeah.
yeah, Rashford can't make them and Pogba can't. Now that was a while ago. It must have been at least
Mhm.
a season and a half ago. But for some reason that stuck in my mind. And when I saw him warming up, and I said, "Oh, he's coming on for the penalties. He must be right." Or like a fast counterattack at the end of the game. I was thinking, what a bizarre decision. This guy can't score penalties.
Hmm.
My mind was saying he's missed several that I can remember. So I didn't feel surprised when he missed his shot, but I'm not totally opposed to bringing on players late on if you think that they're going to have an effect on the penalty shootout. I don't have an opinion on Sancho because I haven't watched him play, but he didn't take a great penalty either. I thought Rashford's was, like you said, close to being brilliant. He
Mhm.
had the run up, he fooled Donnarumma, who had previously guessed the right way on a couple of different kicks, throughout the tournament. He's proven pretty good at blocking penalties, and it just went off the post. So I don't buy the whole thing about they didn't get into the game, because the penalties have nothing to do with the game.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have time to fully mentally prepare for literally the biggest penalty kicks in, I'd say, England's history.
Yeah.
It fell to first Rashford, then Sancho, and then Bukayo Saka, who plays for Arsenal. And yeah, I mean, I feel like Gareth Southgate has mostly gotten his tactics right throughout the tournament, but this was a moment where I felt that he got it wrong in bringing on these two guys just for the sake of taking penalties, one of whom I thought wasn't a good penalty taker to begin with, and then they both
Mhm.
miss.
Before I go to you, James, the ones that stick out to me for Rashford, and yeah, now that you say that, I remember that little mini crisis. The World Cup penalty against Colombia, he took one in the shootout, and it was done well. And then the one against PSG in the Champions League a couple
Yeah.
seasons ago,
At the handball one.
that was a handball. That was a pressure penalty. Up to that point, one of the biggest kicks other than the World Cup of his career, and he took that one very well against an Italian goalkeeper, not as good at that point in Buffon. So those are the two that I thought, okay, in those pressure situations, he's done well. And you're right, it's such a game of just like inches. If it's like 2 inches to the right, it's a genius penalty, and you're like, oh, he's got such coolness, and what a penalty from Rashford. It's a little bit to the left, and it goes off the post, and it's now, they lose. But James, anything on that decision of like, if you were Southgate, do you stick with the guys on the field, or because I can't really blame him to think like, well, we got Rashford and Sancho, who you'd think have quality to, as opposed to Kyle Walker, for instance, to take a penalty, or is it just we're now Monday morning quarterbacking it and like, oh, it's easy to question it now?
Yeah, I think it was the right decision. I think he knows who the penalty takers that are good are in his squad. I'm sure they practice this. So we saw probably in practice, Rashford and Sancho kept making their penalty kicks, and maybe probably Walker was missing them, and so was Henderson. So he's thinking, we're not going to win this game, and we're not going to be able to score. We haven't been able to score. Didn't even got close since the second minute. So let's put on our best penalty kick takers. That's all. That's the result. Like you said, shouldn't really be the. It's kind of seems counterintuitive, but it shouldn't
Mhm.
be the deciding factor in whether or not the decision was the correct one, because, like you said, I already said, like Rashford's was really close, and penalties are such a toss-up whether or not they're going to go in. It like you said, if those had gone in, we would remember it like Tim Krul, where they subbed on the goalie just for penalties, and he won the shootout for them. And I think they did it again, and it didn't work another time. But you only remember the time that
Yeah.
it worked. So I think it's the same sort of situation. I think it was the right call. You want to have your best penalty kick takers on the field. That's it. You're to win the shootout. The coach's job is to get the best players on the field. That's it. He can't make them score,
And
they
to
don't
be
always
fair,
score.
you
They
were
don't
talking
always
about
score their kicks.
penalties being a toss-up. Specifically in this tournament, penalties have been not as guaranteed. I think that honestly has something to do with the fans being there. I think you can't say that doesn't have an effect. I know these guys are all professionals and they've taken penalties in pressure situations in front of fans, but it's been a while since they've had that. And you throw into it this being the biggest moment of all these English players and Italian players for the most part, other than like Chiellini and Bonucci. But the biggest moment of their professional soccer lives. And today they just didn't react well to it. And I don't think like, and yes, you mentioned Saka. I was going to save that as its own thing because I thought that decision. I know, like, yes, he's an attacking player who has good skill and good technique, and yes, if you're just looking at it without all the scenario of the moment, you're like, yeah, well, Saka could take a penalty. But the fact that he was the fifth one and Pickford saved Jorginho's penalty, which was an amazing moment. And if this game goes differently, Jordan Pickford, there's a statue of him outside of Wembley saving that penalty because that was a great save on a guy who everyone in the world probably thought he's just going to score this like he did against Spain. It gets blocked. Then the next guy is Saka from Arsenal, who's 19 years old, who he has to score to continue the shootout. So if he misses, Italy still wins. And right when I saw it was Saka, I thought, this is not fair. Come on. I mean, it's not fair to this man in this moment. I mean, he's had a great career to start. He's already in the national team starting games. Why do we need to saddle him with this possible failure? Like, I know someone has to miss, but I just felt bad for him. And right when I saw it was him, I thought, he's probably going to miss, and it's not great. And that's why, like, yes, the person who misses always, it's like, oh, if he would have made it, we would have, but you cannot, I don't think, lay the blame for England on Saka, really any of the penalty misses, because they didn't really play well in the game. And it's easy to say, well, they missed 3 penalties. That's why we didn't win the tournament. And yes, I guess, but I just felt bad for Saka. And as an Arsenal fan, I'm sure you were like, oh, come on. You were hoping, like, come on, get the goal. That'd be great. That's what I was hoping for with Rashford and Sancho, because I like these players. I like these guys, specifically Rashford. I think he's a really good player. So I felt bad for him, and I felt horrible for Saka as he missed it. And Donnarumma, who is a great goalkeeper, made 3 saves. So anything else on poor Baka? I can never pronounce it right. On Saka.
Yeah. Oh man, I just, he's younger than me. He's younger than
he's younger than all of us.
and to put the pressure of the world with, I mean, I thought it was supposed to be 75,000, but like you said, it was probably more.
Yeah.
That, like, tens of thousands of people, mostly England fans, watching this teenager take the. I just thought it was shocking the order that England took their PKs for Harry Kane, the superstar, the idol. Go ahead.
And not to cut you off, but he usually goes first. And, like, I wasn't shocked that he went first. I think that's not that rare to put your best one first.
That's a tactic, right?
But the rest of the order, like, maybe switch Rashford and Saka. Or Maguire's second was shocking. He made it, but I was like, what are we doing? Like, that had to be from the training ground that somehow – but, sorry, continue.
I just thought – I know that's a tactic to have your best player – take the first penalty as a guaranteed sort of, all right, we're on the board, and it worked. But I thought, when you contrast it with Saka taking the 5th penalty, I just thought the decision looked so bizarre. Like, maybe he could have taken the first penalty. I don't know. Like, why even have him take the penalty? Why weren't players like Sterling, Grealish? These guys take penalties on the regular for their club teams. I read Gareth Southgate's post-game comments, and he said, I picked the order based on how they were doing in training. And I have to take him at his word, but I have to think that some of these players are saying, I want to take a penalty. I want to step up, but nobody, for whatever reason, stepped up, and it was left on a 19-year-old's shoulders. And clearly the pressure was too much. It wasn't a great penalty, and he was going up against a good goalkeeper. It all coalesced into this terrible thing for him, and I think he'll get over it. He's
Hopefully.
A great player with a lot of potential. I hope so, for Arsenal's sake. But we need him.
I mean, on the penalty, it did seem like they had their order, like right at the final whistle. Like, I think Southgate and Steve Holland, the assistant, they had like a little note thing. They were writing it down. It wasn't like they got together and were having a committee meeting on it. Like, it was a planned out thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, James, what do you think about the order? I mean, like, they took off Henderson, who's like has the experience, but I believe he missed in 2018 against Colombia. So, like, there's a mix between experience and like technique. So that's why, like, Bonucci takes one for Italy. Like, I did not feel worried about Bonucci. Maguire as a center back, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. The Bonucci is like, this guy is just a cold-blooded, just like kind of like in the Ramos role of like, he's just going to score because it's Bonucci. So there's that mix of like experience and just like talent. but I feel like the mental thing is so huge, and like Saka, maybe he was confident, and maybe he is. And he probably still, if you asked him like right now, would say, yes, I want the penalty because he's a 19-year-old playing for Arsenal and starting for the English national team. Like, let's not overlook the fact that this guy is like a great soccer player, and, all signs point toward a long and very good career. But James, anything on the order, or like putting that guy fifth as opposed to, say, I don't even know, was like Declan Rice or anybody like that? Grealish, maybe.
Declan Rice was off the field.
Seems like Grealish, Christian, I
Yeah.
agree, would be the better option at fit 5. But maybe he was like 6, because you do have the possibility that it goes longer, but you got to get
Yeah,
to the
right.
first 5.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put him as my fifth taker. I'm surprised that I would expect Sterling and Grealish to be better takers than him, just straight up.
I think they are. I think they've taken them.
I would think that Calvin Phillips, I believe, was still in the field, would probably also be a good taker. I mean, I wouldn't put him fifth, but I was thinking like Saka. I definitely wouldn't put him fifth. But because Sterling takes them for Man City sometimes,
Yeah.
and I think Grealish is used to the scrutiny, like his whole career.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess Saka must have been just banging them in practice. That's probably what it was. He probably never
Yeah.
missed or something.
I mean,
And
he
I
doesn't
mean-
take Arsenal's penalties.
Right. I mean, the other thing is, it seems like, and I don't know if you can change the order once it starts. I don't know if you can. I don't think you can, because maybe as it was going, Southgate's thinking, okay, now I wouldn't have done that, because the way it played out, if it was the other way where it's like, if he scores, we win, you don't feel as like, oh, it's all on him. But it's like, if he misses, we lose. It's like a different scenario, even for him. So the way it played out, it's like, I'm sure there was maybe not, because he believes in these guys. But if I was Southgate and it goes this way, you're like, oh, I wish we could maybe if Grealish is 6th, let's just switch it. Have Grealish go 5th. The other thing is, though, it seems like he trusts Saka a lot. He started him in a few games, like dropped Sancho for Saka in the semifinal. So it seems like he was his guy. He's trusted him, and they got him to this point, and he's going to stick with him. Much like they started Trippier over, I guess, Saka in this formation change, and then they were saying on the commentary that Trippier is like one of his favorite players. So national team has coaches have guys they lean on, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's unfortunate that it had to be a 19-year-old who is burdened with this moment. So
Saka, don't go on Twitter. Don't do it.
I hope he's not,
Or
and I hope
Instagram.
it looked like all his teammates were around him, hugging him and supporting him as they should, and I hope everyone at Arsenal is
Get a
do
therapy
the
dog.
same. Yeah, because it's not. It's just a cruel way of deciding soccer games. I mean, I know someone has, but if you're Italy, it's a joyous moment. And so let's talk about Italy. We did a lot of England there, but Italy goes from, like we said, World Cup, don't even make it, and now they won the Euros. And I know I wanted England just because I have a soft spot for them, but they deserve this win. I mean, they were the better team on the day. They've been the best team through the tournament from the literal opening day, and I don't think expected Italy to do this. And you were talking, James, about England not having a tough road really to get here. Italy kind of had to beat everybody other than maybe France, Belgium, Spain, and then go to England and beat England. So James, for you and about Italy, just how impressed were you, obviously, that they did this, and in the manner that they did, where they were on the front foot for most of these games, I guess, other than, Spain and the Belgium game at times, but just Italy and this accomplishment from the Azzurri.
Yeah, it was just really impressive. They played, like, if you look at their knockout games, they played 4 completely different games. Like against Austria, I think they probably looked poorest in that game, and they grinded it out. And then against Belgium, they came out with this swashbuckling performance. Like, wow, okay, okay, Italy, here you are. And then against Spain, they weathered the storm again. They didn't play. I think it was more Spain's playing well than Italy's playing poorly against Spain. But they were under pressure. And in this game, they had to break down a team that was sitting back. So they almost had to do everything in different games in order to win the whole tournament. And it's just really impressive. Like you look at the players that they have, and most people, I'm guessing, don't know who these guys are. Like Chiesa, I vaguely had heard of him before this tournament. I'd sort of heard of Bernardeschi. like Berardi is like just an Italian guy that I knew. I was like, I wouldn't put him in any lineup really. So to come out and just, just casually be the best team in the tournament, it's just really impressive, especially with the injuries that they ended up having. Is not to mention the ones that happened in this game. Chiesa
Yeah.
went out with an injury. Jorginho was probably not 100% with his knee. Was there one other one? No.
I mean,
And then Spinazzola in another
that
game
was a
with
massive
his
loss.
yeah, that was a huge loss. And you kind of I was thinking about it in the back of my mind against Spain. Like, are they missing Spinazzola? Is it really because he's not there that they're struggling so much? And I was wondering whether if they lost this game, everybody would be talking about, oh, Spinazzola, if he was there, we would have won. But they won without him
Yeah.
after how influential he had been against Belgium and all the other previous games. So they've just come out as just a solid team instead of being a group of individuals. They've just meshed really well, and they've done whatever needed to be done in the game that they're in. Versus like a
Mhm.
Spain that does the exact same thing every time,
Yeah.
for better or worse. Italy seems to be able to adapt, and that's a really good quality to have when you're in a tournament that only has 7 games. You don't have time to make mistakes. So yeah, it's just
And they
really,
didn't
really
make many.
impressive. Yeah.
I mean, and like they changed the way they played, but they didn't really change like their tactical like formation. It's not like they came out with like a different kind of formation. It's just within the game, whatever the game required of them, they just
Yeah.
were willing to do it. If they had to defend, they defended. And I think the three of and I know Spinazzola was probably before he got hurt was like the revelation of that team, maybe along with Chiesa, who I thought was really good today. It was sad that he had to come off, but the three of Chiellini, Bonucci, and Donnarumma is like as good as you're gonna get maybe in Europe. Just like combining all those quality and experience, and this might be Chiellini's last, rodeo. Maybe he gets to Qatar, but and I don't know, Bonucci's also around there, but and yeah, I mean, it started out looking like they might miss Spinazzola as, England goes down the side that Emerson's on, and Emerson just kind of stands there as Trippier, puts the ball in. But I think also, I'll go to you, Christian, right now in a second, but it seems like a lot of these guys were on the fringes of squads of Italy past, like in 2016 or 2014, even maybe just like on the bench, maybe gets like 5 minutes. I know Insigne's been around, on the bench, and they've had other guys, and, same as like Belotti, and I feel like a lot of those guys. But this was their first time together, and I think you have to credit Mancini a lot for figuring out the balance of getting the guys, like you're saying, James, that if you stack the talent against each other, maybe in all the games except this, well, even Spain, like if you put the talent up against each other, you're like, I think Belgium has better players, maybe England has better players in total, but they had an idea and a plan that worked to perfection. They still have not lost in more than 30 games. So Christian, for you, what was most impressive about Italy? I think a lot of these players, for Italian fans, are like, yeah, we know these guys. They just hadn't done it with the national team. I think it's rare to see that. So what was your kind of biggest impressive point from Italy in this last month?
I think you have to give, like you said, huge credit to Roberto Mancini. He took over an Italy team that didn't even make it to the 2018 World Cup. I was reading about this, his first game in charge was against Saudi Arabia, who was using that game as a tune-up for the World Cup, which they qualified for,
Yeah.
and Italy did not. So when you put this entire run from that point 3 years ago until the present, the rise in Italy's fortunes is even more remarkable. And he said in one of his first interviews, my goal is to bring Italy back to the top, world champions and European champions. So he ticked the first box on his first go, European champions at the first attempt. And as James said, they were tactically flexible and they had to exhibit different aspects of what makes them a great team. Some games they were defensive, other games they were, counterattacking. This game they were really persistent in breaking down that England parked bus, and so I think that all stems from him and his ability to make a whole lot out of, I don't want to say a little, because these players are really good players, but like you said, they're maybe not household names or they've been on the fringes of past Italy teams. I mean, for them to win this tournament with almost a complete lack of a number 9, Immobile after game 1 was pretty absent. Andrea Belotti was basically a sub that didn't do much. So for them to win this tournament without having a basic functioning forward is even more impressive. And so you have to give him credit as a man manager. I think all the Italian players stepped up, Verratti, Jorginho, but I was most impressed with Bonucci and Chiellini, who I think people thought were washed up and they're the old men and they kind of look funny. They're always like hugging each other and kissing each other and whatever. It's like a bromance. But man, they showed why they are one of the best center back pairings in the world. Chiellini had room in his pocket for Sterling and Kane tonight. I mean, he played fantastic. He's 37 years old and he played 120 minutes. Didn't look like he was tired. I think you can't look past and Donnarumma. I think he's like 21 or 22. Just got to move to PSG. I mean, he's going to be the next Buffon, it looks like, or maybe even better.
And he's already got the international tournament win. Buffon had to wait a bit for that in 2006. I think the other thing that we should say for Italy is, like, I think at the end of 2016 Euros, we kind of were like, Portugal won, but they weren't they were kind of a grinded out. We wanted France to be get the win for that, the way they had played. I think this tournament, the team that played the best and gave us the most, I think, exciting games, the Italy-Belgium game and the Italy-Spain game were like two of the best games of the tournament. They tried to play soccer, attacking, went for it. And I like it when that kind of thing is rewarded with a win, as opposed to some of the team like grinds it out and they get the tournament win. And the team that tries to play exciting goes home. So from that perspective, I think they're worthy winners. I'm very excited. I mean, I'm already excited for the World Cup, but I'm very, very, very excited through this tournament to see Italy is back to Italy. And I think international soccer is always good when the big dogs are good. And I think Italy has come back. I think the World Cup suffered because a good Italy was not there. And now the 2022 World Cup looks like Italy will be there, and they still have to qualify. Nothing's given to anybody. They don't get a free ride to the World Cup because of this, but I think, will definitely be there. So we'll go to England, but any of the last things on just Italy? And from the first game, we're like, oh, they look so good. Are they the best team this term? We're like, nah, it's so early. We'll just wait and see. And then they're the ones, lifting the trophy. So anything?
Well, I have
yes.
two things I could say, I suppose. So firstly, going forward, like Christian had mentioned, that Immobile has been kind of invisible. That's an issue going forward, I think, for Italy. I think if they can find someone that works better in that role, or just maybe Immobile, like some tactical switch or something, can make him as deadly as he is for Lazio. They need to get a number 9 involved, and they could really challenge for a World Cup, because the World Cup's going to be harder than the Euros. So I think they are missing that someone really good in that position. I don't know if it's going to come from some young Italian, or if it's going to be the people we already have. Maybe you should bring back Balotelli. Think about it, Mancini. He's still out there. Why always
They have a
me?
love-hate relationship.
Yeah, pick him. Another thing I was thinking was,
do.
in like retrospect to this whole tournament, I think I'd mentioned this. I don't know what episode I'd said it in, but that this win, it could be, depending on what happens in the World Cup, but I think this is the last. What's it? I don't know what the word, like, last hurrah of the great center back pairings from the 2010s. I'd mentioned it before. Like Boateng, Hummels are gone. Sergio Ramos and Puyol and
PK.
what's his name? PK are gone. And then English center backs, like there's not been a really long pairing, except for all we have left now is Chiellini and Bonucci. I don't know if they're going to make it to 2022, and if they do, I don't know if they're going to win. It'll be interesting to watch, but that's one of the thoughts that it's like a you were talking about experience, it's a whole legacy thing of the 2010s. So,
Christian, any final thoughts on Italy and all the joy they've brought to us this summer?
No, I'm excited to see where they progress from here. I think I like Mancini. I liked him at Man City, and I think he felt a little disrespected that he was let go, and he kind of bounced around to different clubs after that. And I think he felt that after what he did, he never got the recognition he deserves. So I'm happy for him. I hope this gives him the recognition he deserves. He's clearly demonstrated that he's a great manager still. And yeah, if they can solve I wouldn't call it a problem up top, but if they can find a striker that's really really dangerous. Like you come up against him, oh, here we come up against blank, then that could bode really
Balotelli.
well. Oh, it's Balotelli, 35-year-old Balotelli.
He's not 35. He's a young man.
Yeah.
Whatever, James.
No, I think he's old.
I think also
Why always him? Why always him?
I also I think before the tournament it was kind of not that big of news, but sometimes this happens where Mancini got like a contract extension like through 2026, and people are like, interesting. Okay, they haven't even played this tournament. Now that looks like, yeah, lock this guy down because he's the guy for Italy. And I think it must have also felt sweet for him playing these last two games at Wembley, where he had probably his most infamous loss as a Manchester City manager at the hands of Wigan in the FA Cup final. And I'm guessing it felt good to beat England in Wembley, in the home of football, whatever, with his Italy. And football is coming to Rome, as Bonucci screamed into the camera, which was a good, which
That
was
was
good.
amazing.
Did he?
He did. He did.
Wait, when?
Oh, yeah.
When he
Right
scored or
after-
after the shootout?
No, after the shootout. After the shootout. His celebration was good too. Jumping on the advertising boards is always a good one. Yeah, and then at the end of he was screaming it, so he had to maybe like go back but that's what he was saying. And I think he said afterwards that it was definitely a motivation. Which, how could it not be when these people are acting like it's their God-given right to win a soccer game, and yet they had like 30% of that. No, I don't know how much it was, but
It was something. It was around there.
Italy is thinking, I think football's home should be in Rome, and it is for the next few years. So, and also one last thing on Bonucci and Chiellini, I think that's also cool that they got a major tournament win because they've been around forever. Like you said, they were in the team in 2012 that got blown away by Spain, and now 9 years later, they're lifting the trophy. So that's a credit to them, and I think that was a major part of Italy's success. You need experience in major tournaments, and they definitely have that, and then some. So we'll go to England. It wasn't the great end, obviously, because they had the opportunity. It was probably their best chance to win a major tournament that you're ever going to get, because even if you get back to a final, it's likely not going to be at home. Although the last the three hosts that made a final at the Euros have all lost: England, then France in 2016, and then Portugal in 2004. So maybe it's not a great thing. I think overall it has to be a positive takeaway from England. I mean, I know the tournament was set up for them. It went well to get to the final. If you make a final, the tournament cannot be a failure, no matter what happens in the final. They have a lot to build on, a lot of young players who hopefully will be made better by this excruciating loss. And if I'm England, World Cup's in 18 months. You still believe in Gareth Southgate. There's still a lot to build on. I think the biggest issue for them is like chance creation. That's one. And also, how do they react in these games where they're up against a team that's technically better than them, and as the game goes on, just starts just imposing its will on England. It happened against Croatia 2018, where England had the lead and the other team just kind of takes control of the game and just kind of snuffs them out as we go on. How do they make that adjustment to fix that? And I don't know if there could be players that come up in the next 18 months or whatever, but I know, James, you've been cynical about England this whole time because they haven't beaten anybody, and you were vindicated today by them losing to a big team. But going forward for England, I think it's overall positive because they did everything to get here. They just one thing away, and if it's a penalty shootout, could have gone the other way, and we're talking about the greatest night in England's history. But for you, where do you see England? Obviously not a great performance today, but going forward, what's your take on them?
I think they should be shooting for another final in 18 months' time. I think they have the quality to do it. I think their biggest problem right now is figuring out how to use all their talent. I think they should be figuring it out, like trying to understand why their starting center mids were Rice and Phillips.
But they played well, to be fair.
Yeah, but you need something else. That's not.
Yeah.
I think I said this to you, Christian, not on the podcast, that they're playing more like Wolves, and yet they have the talent of Man City. It just doesn't make sense. You don't play that way. You play that way when you think you can't beat the other team on talent, or you're really concerned about it. And I think they have the talent to beat anybody. I think like they should have used Jude Bellingham more, who when he did come on I thought was really bright. And I think the only time they should be using this Rice-Phillips combo is when they're protecting a lead and there's only like 10, 15 minutes left.
And they were trying to protect the lead for
90
80,
minutes. Yeah,
88
80,
minutes.
whatever. It's just not
Or
it's not a
more.
good strategy. It's not a tournament winning strategy. You can get a couple games like that, but you try to do that 5 times in a row, one time, and that's all it takes in a tournament. One time someone's going to score. So I think that's their big issue going forward. How are they going to use Rashford? How are they going to use Sancho? Because right now the strategy is not to use them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way. There must be a way. Someone smarter than me, Southgate probably. He can figure it out. Maybe he needs an advisor, someone to whisper in his ear.
I mean, he has a lot of guys whispering in his ear. There's always a guy whispering in his ear, and that's kind of been part of, I think, what's made them good is he's willing to listen to input. He's not some kind of, I know everything figure. But there are, I think, have been some fair questions about sometimes how they play and how they've reacted in these kind of games. They reacted well against Denmark. That's Denmark, who they were able to just kind of wear down because they are a better team. You, Christian, I thought that Jude Bellingham shout was pretty good from James, because 18 months from now he could be the best midfielder in Europe potentially. Dortmund has been good at churning out fantastic young talent, but for you, where do you see England from here? How do you think this went, and going forward, looking 18 months and at the World Cup?
I'm so conflicted on England. I'm kind of, I haven't been on the podcast to say it, but I pretty much echo what James has said. They got a kind of an easy run to the final and whatnot, but pragmatic has been the descriptor that's been like attached to England this entire tournament. Oh, they play so pragmatically. And I was a little bit disappointed by that, given the array of attacking talent they have. I was really, really hoping we'd see a lot more of the likes of Rashford and Sancho and Saka. I know there's so many players and they only get 11 slots on the field. But I thought, and this game was a perfect example of it, a little bit of a negative approach in a major. I mean, they had one shot on target in 120 minutes. Yes, it's against Italy, but given the players you have, I would have hoped that England would have done better, not just in this game, but in the entire tournament. So, like you said, I think there's a lot to be positive. They have a really young squad. Their last three penalty takers, the ones that missed, were 23, 21, and 19. So that's a pretty good sample size of the rest of the squad. I don't know who the oldest player is, but
Henderson.
Maybe.
And how old is he? Like 30, maybe 29.
I think he's in his 30s now. Maybe but not super old, not Chiellini old.
And he didn't even play. So of the team that started most of the tournament, they're all really young, and I think they should they'll take some time to get over this loss because of how it happened in a manner and where they were and all. But I think they should be feeling really positive for Qatar, especially because, and I've been thinking about this, they're going to be much fresher for Qatar than they would be for a Summer World Cup. It's going to be like, winter is usually when these players hit their peak. That's when the fixture kind of, you could call it congestion, starts, but they'll only be like 2 or 3 months into their season, and they won't be dead after playing 60 games. They'll be maybe 15 to 20 games into the season. So I'm excited to see how this England team pans out. I have high hopes for a lot of these young guys. They're very likable, and I want to support England. I just wish they were a little bit more attacking to satisfy my hunger for goals.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about this, the congested fixtures of this season and the way that COVID kind of changed, club football. A lot of these teams were dealing with that, and I think they were saying Pedri, for instance, had played like a crazy amount of games, and they're sending him to the Olympics for some reason. I was like, can this guy get a break for 5 minutes before he has to play for Barcelona? But I think that's a good point, that we'll have a different looking kind of the minutes on the legs will be different. I think early on, Kane suffered from that. He took a while to kind of get going. So that's a good point there. And yeah, I like England. I've always liked England, but I like this group. I think it's a lot of young guys who are exciting. I enjoy, they're right. They have all this talent, and also a lot of, I think, creativity in the team. They're they got a lot of character in the group of like guys willing to try, a lot of skill and likes of Rashford, Sancho, Foden, who was injured today. I think that should be said. Mount. So seems a little like wasting this to be pragmatic. But then again, pragmatism sometimes works at the international level when you don't have as much time to create some kind of free-flowing attack. So Southgate and the guys in England are going to have to try to figure something out. But this tournament has definitely, I mean, we're always excited for the World Cup, but this has like made me super excited for what these teams look like now. And the fact that we're not 2 years away, we're less than that to a World Cup where, you know, Netherlands, what are they going to look like? Italy and England, both of them, I'm excited. Like maybe we'll get a rematch in like a quarterfinal or something, which would be exciting.
50.
So Spain, like in 18 months, who knows what those guys are going to look like? Like, are they going to come out and be like, you know, you thought we were, you know, good when we couldn't score? Watch us now when we have possession and scoring. So I'm excited for that. We're going to go another thing I'm excited about. South America will be involved in the World Cup, James and Christian.
Ooh.
The Copa America happened. They had their final on Saturday. What a great doubleheader we had of the Copa America final, followed by the Euro final. Brazil played Argentina. They hadn't played since 2007 in a Copa America final, which is mind-boggling. But on this day, James, Messi, finally his teammates showed up and did not need him to carry them all. They carried him in not his best performance as Argentina defeats Brazil in Maracanã, another loss for Brazil in Maracanã. Left Neymar in tears, which I was like, I know he's wants to win. He's an emotional guy and is passionate. I was like, you won the Copa America 2 years ago, and you're going to be at the World.
He doesn't like losing, David.
I guess.
He's a big
Argentina, Angel Di Maria, after a great pass. Was that DePaul with the pass? Who was the pass from?
I think it was DePaul.
Who had a good game. Shambolic defending by the left back. Who was that guy?
Lodi. Renan Lodi. He plays for
Who was
Atletico
that guy?
Madrid.
Exactly. I don't know. If you think he'd be better. But he was also onside by the hairs on his
chinny chin chin
and his very cleanly shaven chinny chin chin. But a great finish from Di Maria in the first half. And Brazil had most of the ball. But Argentina, which they haven't always done, was solid, did not fold, and they hang on for their first major senior international tournament win since like 1993. Messi finally gets the win. Yes, people were going to say it was empty stadiums.
It wasn't empty.
There were fans. There were fans. Not a lot of them, but there were fans. I think we all watched this game. I was rooting for Argentina. I like both teams. I like Brazil, but I think I was like, Messi just needs to get this. No more losing. No more, we can't win the big one because whatever. I was happy for Messi, and they were all happy for him. They were all throwing him in the air. That was fun to see. So anything on that from you guys in terms of the game? Just because I think Argentina has been not great for a while in terms of living up to expectations. Now they have a major tournament win. Copa America is nothing to sneeze at. So, Christian, what's your assessment of that game and Argentina finally getting one for Messi?
I was really happy for Messi, and a little special shout out to the former Arsenal goalkeeper Emi Martinez.
He was the hero. Again,
played an amazing game in shutting Brazil out, and Brazil's not used to getting shut out. They're not used to losing in general. And so I thought it was impressive that Argentina's backline held in the way that it did. And I don't really think you can even dock Messi any points for there not being, fans or that it being an empty stadium, because I thought Argentina were by far the better team. Even though it was one, it ended 1-0. I thought they created more chances. I thought they looked way more dangerous on the counterattack, as evidenced by Di Maria's kind of, lofted ball over the top and then the little beautiful chip over Alisson. But yeah, I'm not sold on Argentina yet going forward long term. I don't know if, just like Barcelona, I don't know if either team has a plan post Messi because he's getting older and the guys that are surrounding him are okay, but not world beaters. So I'm just happy that Messi was lifting a trophy and was smiling and looked so happy, and that Neymar was in tears. And nothing brings me more joy than Neymar in tears. Nothing.
I forgot about that. You're right. Yeah. James, for you, me and you both agree, I think that Messi didn't need to win this to prove anything to anybody about his place in the pantheon of all-time men's soccer players. But it does feel nice and sweet that now has a Copa America, and that he beat Brazil to win that Copa America, because his other finals, a couple of them had been against Chile, which I feel like if he had won, people are like, oh, it's Chile. But in Brazil, it's hard to take anything away from that accomplishment. And to be fair, yes, the game, he wasn't great, but he had been really good throughout the tournament, goals, assists, and had been Messi that we expect. But what is your, feeling about it, that he won, and Argentina put a team around him that, was capable of winning the Copa America?
I mean, I didn't, like you said, I didn't really subscribe to the notion that he needed to win this tournament to prove whatever. Like, Stu Holden, crowned him the best player ever after the final whistle. Like, oh yeah, 5 minutes before. No. After the game's over, now he's the best. Like, get out of here. We're not trying to. It's not the best. It's not the player with the most trophies. It's the best player, whatever. So because of that, I didn't really feel as much of a connection about the. Like, I'm happy he won because I was leaning towards Argentina, but I wasn't like, oh yes, oh they've won, they never won. It didn't really do anything for me. That the history there. Sorry, Argentina. But going forward, he's still young. He's a young man. Messi? Yeah. I think he's gonna go. What Ronaldo's like? What, 37 now? He's gonna be 30. Ronaldo will be 37 in for the World Cup that's coming. 37, right? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think he's planning on being there.
Ronaldo, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Messi can make it because Messi's 3 years younger. So I think Messi will be there.
Yeah.
And still be good. And I think Messi's still around, and because of that, Argentina will always have a shot. How much of a shot? I don't know. They need some Argentinian child or someone to just pop out of nowhere in the next 18 months that plays like center back, someone that isn't Otamendi.
Yeah.
To really challenge.
The second coming of Mascherano comes back or something.
Yeah, maybe someone
and he's 6 inches taller.
6 inches taller, yeah, and just as crazy.
I still think I'm still dreaming of a day where somehow Messi does somehow win the World Cup. Because if it happens, he would have to not only have the team play well, which is always the case in soccer, no one's going to win by themselves, but he would have to turn in a performance of, epic proportions. And that to happen would be amazing. And then to be able to see it happen, I still I know I want the US always to do as well as possible, and Peru and Armenia if they make it. But a part of me still is dreaming of Argentina run to the World Cup, and they almost did it in 2014. It
should have been.
He was inches away from that, but I'm still looking at you, Palacios and Higuain. We did have a question on this game from James. You're our aunt Angela from Oregon. They watched the game. They've been watching the Copa America, which is it's a great tournament. I like the differences in the way these games are played. It's a very, they're both high quality. Copa America's got a lot of tackles flying around, and it's tough to win that tournament. Maybe it'd be tougher. James has made the accusation that if Switzerland was in CONMEBOL, they would not qualify for the World Cup. So
I stand by that.
I don't know, but still you stand by that now?
Yes, still. Yes.
Her question was more a Brazil question, because Brazil was the overwhelming favorite of this tournament. They've won almost every game. They've been unbeaten for a while, probably maybe since the Belgium game.
It is since the Belgium game.
I think it is since the Belgium game in 2018. Her question was, let's see. What did we think of Brazil's performance in this game? They seem like the favorites going in, both as the stronger team and having the home advantage. Any kind of insights on what their weaknesses were, in this game, and what led to Argentina winning? Because I was surprised that Argentina won, and I was also surprised that they also weren't. They were defending a lot, but they also, like you were saying, Christian, had opportunities on the counter to make it too. Messi had a chance toward the end to finish it. So I thought it was a good performance. And Brazil has gotten kind of lucky in a couple of these games. They had a late one against, I believe it was Colombia. Peru played them pretty well for Peru in the semifinal. So I'll start with you, James, though. What was from the Brazil perspective, was it just, every so often in soccer you're going to lose, and if they play this game a bunch, they probably would have won? Or are there issues like at the back where they got Thiago Silva, who's kind of older, and that random guy you said from Atletico Madrid, I'll take your word for it, seemed pretty. That was pretty. Marcelo's not there really anymore. So any concern about Brazil as we go forward? They're considered a favorite for the World Cup, one of the favorites. But
I
anything
think
from this
they were
from this
never.
specific game?
Yeah, I think they played well enough to win if they could kick it into the goal. That because like they were they're in around the area a lot, but I think a couple of times they were like offside when they could have just held their run. Like I think it was Richarlison. If he could have just held his run by half a step, he would have got his goal, which was called offside instead. Um, but yeah, they don't they. When was the last time we saw a Brazil team that's completely solid at the back that looks like Italy? That never happens because they're not known for that. No, they're not known for that because it never happens. Because if you think about, they've got good center backs. Like Thiago Silva is still pretty good. Marquinhos is like the next Thiago Silva. Lodi, I think I think that was just a mistake.
Being too harsh on him.
I don't think he's a particularly bad player. They've got a lot of fullbacks that are like decent, and I think their weakness has always been midfielders. They've never like if you think about history of soccer, you think of okay, who are the best midfielders ever? None of them are going to be Brazilian.
Well, I mean, Ronaldinho and Rivaldo.
Ronaldinho's not.
Kaká.
Neither of those guys are midfielders.
Kaká,
No, he's not a midfielder. Those are all attackers.
Garrincha,
All
Oscar.
attackers. Oscar's not a legendary midfielder.
Dunga. Oh, he's a defender.
No, I'm not saying there are
Kiki?
none. I'm not saying there are none. Like
Marta.
Socrates. I think. She's a forward.
She is. You're
They're
right.
all forwards. All the people you're naming are forwards. So Brazil is known for their free flowing.
Formiga.
Formiga's a defender, wasn't she?
No, she was a center defensive midfielder. You're
Okay.
saying creative attacking midfielders?
No, midfielders like a midfielder, like a Gerrard,
Pirlo.
Pirlo,
They
Lampard.
just play a different
Vieira.
way.
They play a different way. They play a different way, and all the talented players want to play attacking, and that's what they do, and that's where their strength is. So their weakness, therefore, is control the midfield. Like if they have like Fred in there, all Fred's job is to
Hey,
just pass it
come
to
on.
the attackers, and
Fred.
it works when you've got someone as talented as Neymar. I know you don't like him, Christian,
Yeah.
but he is an absolute nightmare to defend, and he was in this game too. You can't deny that. The amount of times he got fouled is a
I'm
testament.
denying it.
You can try, but it would be wrong because he was a nightmare in this game too.
Just gives a thumbs
Um,
down.
Ooh.
So yeah, Brazil is just normal Brazil. They have decent guys, okay guys in the midfield, and it's going to be up to legendary attackers or non-legendary attackers to get it done.
So in this
forward.
game, not clinical enough in the final third, and their weakness kind of at the back was slightly exposed.
Yeah.
Weakness is kind of strong. I mean,
I think
just not
weakness is
a
a strong
strength.
word. It's
Not-
not a strength. They usually have decent guys, but if they're under pressure the whole game, I do not back them to defend for 90 minutes. It's just not going to happen.
So Christian, I know, Neymar is not one of your favorites, and I think a lot of people do not like his antics, which is fair in some cases. But he's also a great soccer player. He's also without really, other than the Copa America, I guess that's a major tournament. That's his one major tournament. He's like 27, right? 26. So
Closer to 30, I think.
he's not as young as he used to be. But for this game, what was your take on the Brazil performance against Argentina, who, Brazil was the favorite. They had the possession and the passes and all that stuff. But what was the issue with them yesterday, you think?
I think Neymar, I'll admit he's a good player. But I think he's lacking a bit of support as an attacking player. I mean, Richarlison, in my opinion, watching him play in the Premier League is not even close to the same level as Neymar, obviously, and frankly is not up to par with what the type of strikers Brazil usually produces. Like all those players we just mentioned, you're right, most of them are forwards. He's nowhere near Everton. I mean, like the Everton, the player, not the club.
And
Richarlison, doesn't Richarlison play for Everton, the club? Or not
Richarlison plays
anymore?
for Everton, the club, and
Wait,
then there's
did
Everton,
you know the
player.
club? The club Everton is actually owned by the Brazilian player. named
Everton Ribeiro? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, James.
Yeah.
And then,
Interesting.
I mean, it's hard for him to do it by himself, which is why he ends up getting in all these situations where he's rolling around because he gets fouled because he's double or triple teamed because they know that some of the other players surrounding him aren't at his level. So I thought there was a couple times where he kind of tried to go it alone and maybe could have played in teammates. I was a little bit disappointed by that because they're still decent, and I feel like they could have troubled Argentina a little bit more than they did. But if I was Brazil, I wouldn't be worried. They have all the components to be an amazing team come the World Cup. But yeah, I mean, is there any Brazilian kids playing in the favelas or something they can?
Yes,
pick
there
up?
are.
Well, I
There's
was gonna
tons.
say-
There's tons.
I was gonna say they brought on Vinicius Jr., who's, I was surprised a little bit that he's from Real Madrid. He's like an attacker, winger kind of guy, not a striker. And I mean, Jesus was, I think, suspended for his horrific attempted decapitation against. I think that was against Paraguay? I don't know who that was, but it went kind of high and rightfully got a multiple game suspension. I think he's better than Richarlison and Gabriel Barbosa, who I don't think is, unless you're playing Football Manager in like 2015 and he's got the 5-star potential, not really lived up to it. I think that's right. I think just like Messi needs support, I think Neymar has more support at this point from a structure, like as an overall team. But yeah, they were playing the bad Fred, and I thought Man U's Fred was bad. There was a worse Fred who played in 2014, and he was leading the line as they were trying to win the World Cup.
That's an
So,
embarrassment.
You'd pay millions of dollars for Richarlison if you had Fred.
Yeah, they are now
Richarlison.
like so happy they have Richarlison and Everton after the Fred experience. But I think, yeah, they I mean, if they defend, if they had not had that mistake, I mean, these games are kind of close. I think they might have won that game. So I don't want to keep picking on that left back, but it was pretty bad. That's all I'm saying. Here's my last question on the Copa America, and I guess going forward to the World Cup as we transition into looking ahead. Argentina. So just one word. Oh, not one word, because that's no fun. Does Argentina make the World Cup semifinal? Yes or no, James?
Oh God.
It's a pretty simple answer, I think. I mean, I want to believe
yes. I'm gonna
Oh
say
my
yes.
God.
Christian, you can disagree with me right now.
No.
that. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Same question for Brazil. They didn't make it in 2018 after making it in 2014. I mean, it's been a while since we had a South American World Cup winner. It's been since 2002. And even the finals, 2006 was European, 2010 was all European, 2014 was not. Argentina got the closest. 2018, France, Croatia. So I wouldn't mind both of them making the semifinal, but does Brazil make the semifinal? 2022? Maybe.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everton.
Everton
Everton.
leading the line.
I believe.
Everton and Richarlison, club owner and the club star. Not star, I don't know. So yeah, I guess the last thing we'll touch on, I guess, is looking forward to the World Cup. Now, qualifying is first. And qualifying is just it's not as good as the World Cup. But the qualifying, I think, could be, I would highly advise people to look up a World Cup qualifying schedule. Look at the team you would want to make it, whether it's the USA, Peru, Armenia, Lebanon,
Iran.
Iran, whoever, India. I think India's out.
Sorry, India.
Sorry.
Next
Because
time.
those have either already started or, in the US's case, which is the one I'm most excited about, get started in September, and like basically every month up until March of 2022, there's going to be games. So, qualifying for South America is pretty much in the thick of things, as we've talked about, with Peru being squarely behind the 8 ball right now. Armenia's 3 games in, so Europe is 3 games in. Armenia has 9 points somehow after 3 games. I don't know if Tigran Barsegyan, we trust. Actually, we trust the coach, whatever that Joaquin. What's his name?
Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know.
It's not Joaquin Phoenix.
He'll be played by Joaquin Phoenix in the Hollywood movie
Yeah,
that they make for when they win the World Cup.
So, I guess this is very broad. You could be very specific, I guess, if you want, but what are you most looking forward to from the World Cup? I'm trying to look at the positives, because there's a lot of negatives around this World Cup.
What, the
It
slavery
seems
and
to
death?
have, the slavery and death that has led to the building of these stadiums. The fact that it's in
That's so
November and December, which is just offensive to just slap in the face to all soccer fans. Really,
Will
that
the
FIFA
final
did.
be on Christmas?
No, I don't think it's exactly. I think it's like November 18th to like December 20 something. I don't think it's exactly on the 25th.
Oh.
So there's that, and yes, the literal lives that have been lost to create this, the backs of the poor refugees that this thing has been built on. There's a lot of negativity, and I could understand if people like don't watch, because there's people who probably are like, this is like a lot of issues, and I'm just gonna not support it, but we're all going to watch. I mean, the three of us will all be watching. So on a positive look at the World Cup that has its issues and has its blemishes, I'll start with Christian then. What are you most looking forward to in about 18 months time?
Well, one of the positives I pointed out earlier was I think I'm hoping players are maybe a little bit fresher, and maybe we see a little bit more energy during games. I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but I'm looking forward to seeing the U.S. I hope that they make the World Cup, and if they do, I personally am really, really optimistic. I think they can make a quarterfinal. I'm just throwing that out there. I know
Don't do that.
qualifying hasn't
Don't do
even
that.
started.
Don't give me hope.
It's the hope that kills you.
Yeah.
But I feel I'm high on the U.S. team right now. Maybe that's just because of the Mexico game and how amazing that was. But recency bias, whatever. I'm buying all in, and I'll be on the plane to Qatar if they make a quarterfinal. I'm excited to see kind of some of the teams we talked about from Europe, specifically England, even more so than Italy. Italy, I kind of felt like I've known they're good, but England has a lot of young talent, and I like watching the young players break through onto the global scene. It's like this is the future. You're watching, whether it's the Mbappes or the Sanchos or those guys. I like seeing them. I'd love to see if Armenia can make it. That would be the dream. I have my jersey in the closet gathering dust because they're never on TV, but they're top of their qualifying group and they play Macedonia next.
Epic
That's
clash.
a win, baby. That's a win.
I think it has to be, given their. I mean, then I'll start to believe. 12 points after 4 games.
And there's
Maybe
only then there'll only be 4 games left, right? Or is it 5 games left?
6 games left, right?
Okay.
They play
Yeah, because they have
10.
to play
quite a
Germany
few.
and then Okay.
Anything
and
else?
I'm also excited to see if Germany were my huge not disappointments. I shouldn't say that, because they kind of had a low expectations with the transition of their old coach.
Yeah, that's true. New coach.
New coach, Hansi Flick, who was fantastic with Bayern. Flick. I'd be excited to see what he does with some of the young German talent. I'm big on the young guys, so if the young guys on all these different teams can impress, I'll be a happy camper.
James, what about for you? What are you excited for?
Oh, so much. I'm excited for so much, to be honest. All the return of Holland, the return of Italy. Both of them look like they could be, quarterfinalists, maybe semifinalists if they have a really good game. Which just adds more good matchups. That's what I'm most excited for, is great matchups. Like matchups that we haven't seen, like Holland, Brazil, or Brazil,
USA,
France, USA, Belgium, not Belgium, USA, Argentina, like
no,
not
not Belgium, not Belgium.
USA,
Yeah.
Italy, like just a bunch of big team matchups that we haven't seen in a while. I like when everybody's on all cylinders. Like I want Van Dijk to be back. I want Italy to still be good. I think England is good, and I want them to prove that in this upcoming tournament by going like Sherman's March to the Sea through every single big team and just winning. That would be so cool, because then I could finally respect what they've done. So that's one thing. So I'm excited about the big matchups. I'm also excited about the teams that I personally have a little like, oh, never mind, like the United States, Armenia, daring not to believe.
Dare to dream.
I'm not dreaming. I can't. Like you said, if they beat Macedonia, I'll be like, maybe they might make it. Like they'll squeeze in at second place and have to play a playoff, right? When that
Yes.
it's like Sweden or something.
Yes,
That would be
James. We know
cruel.
where this is heading. Yes.
Peru, they might make it, but if
Also,
they do,
intercontinental playoff.
yeah, that would be exciting. Like having Armenia and Peru and USA all in the same tournament, that would be really exciting. Oh man, what I mean, just the problem is I have too many soft spots. I'm turning soft, guys.
Yeah.
I like Argentina, and I like Brazil, I like Holland, I do like Belgium, and I like France. Like, wait, hold on. This is
How
Who
many
do
teams
you
are
who
in
do
the
you
tournament?
not like?
yeah. I just don't like Switzerland. Like,
Switzerland and Sweden and Croatia. And,
yeah,
Ukraine,
I even like Germany.
yeah.
Russia.
Some of the Bayern players, I think with Flick, like Sané and Gnabry, and yeah, get Goretzka and Kai Havertz. Like those guys are all good.
Yeah.
They could put together a title challenging team. So I think well, maybe this is too far to call. I think France still is going to be favored, probably slightly, but I think it's kind of a toss up of who's really going to win. That might be the most exciting thing.
Yeah. I think what I'm excited for, yeah, I think that was a good point that we go into World Cups and are like, there's probably, because only like 6 teams have ever won the thing, the men's tournament. And that includes England, even though they've only done it once. But I think there's a lot of teams that could win it. And even this Euros kind of proved we went into it thinking it's probably France or Belgium. And it was Italy. And Italy definitely could win the World Cup. But so could England, I think. There's a world where that's possible. I know English fans are like, no, they're still crying right now.
Sorry.
I'm also excited for, this is more like a real like meta, like nerdy thing, but this is the last 32 team World Cup. After this, we go into expanded 48 teams in the try hosting US, which I'm excited for because the US is hosting it. I have not been alive for the US hosting a World Cup, a men's World Cup. I didn't forget about you, 1999 Women's World Cup, USA.
Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl, Brandy Chastain, Mia Hamm. Anyway, I'm excited for that because I think the format of 32 teams is a great format because you actually get a cut down from 32 to 16. It's not 24 to 16, no third places. You got to get second. And I like that format. And it will make it even more special, I think, if Peru and Armenia, for instance, make it in a 32-team World Cup. That would be amazing. So, yes, that's the other thing I'm excited for. All the teams that we have soft spots for, not just soft spots, like actively have, like, our heart is in it. USA, Peru, and Armenia.
Yeah.
I highly doubt all 3 will make it. If all 3 made it, it might be the best World Cup of my life to this point. I mean, that would be – and, yes, 2 of those 3 probably won't have a great run. But specifically for Armenia, it would – I don't think it's too crazy to call it a miracle if they make the World Cup. Am I being – because they do not have – other than like 3 guys, like actual – they have 1 guy who has – you could call him potentially world class. Potentially.
But not.
But not. He's getting up there. He's starting to look more like Chiellini every day. But I saw some of the preseason pictures. But that's going to make it even better when he makes it as old man Mkhitaryan. But that would be amazing just to have Armenia at the international stage.
Air miles, baby.
Hey, who cares? We'll love every second of the air miles.
Yeah. That would be great.
I hope they don't get drawn together. That's my only thing. I don't want USA, Peru, and Armenia. Come on, don't do that to us. Let's just 3 different groups. Peru, I just love Peru, and I hope that they get another chance at the World Cup and that they do not enter another wilderness of international soccer and miss a World Cup for another 40 years or 30 years. Like they have a momentum because they have a good group of players. I love the manager, Ricardo Gareca. I can listen to him talk, even though I don't understand what he's saying. I can listen to him for hours. Sometimes I do that. I go listen to his interview, and I'm like, yes, I agree, profe, I agree. And the USA, I mean, obviously I'm most excited about that because I agree with Christian. There's the potential that all these young guys who are at good clubs, and I know James is like, do it when it matters in World Cup qualifiers and all this stuff, but there's the potential with guys at Barcelona, Chelsea, Juventus, to take these next like level in the next 18 months and become really, really, really great players at the international stage. And we really haven't had that for the US to have this many guys potentially be that great. You know, we had a good team in 2002 that overachieved. 2006, we thought we'd be good, and we're not that great.
They were robbed of a semifinal, by the way, 2002. Look it up.
2002. You're
Literally
right.
robbed.
They were
I
robbed.
would have given them a semifinal.
Yeah. But this team could do it. It could do a quarter. I think quarterfinal is possible. And like, that's kind of scary and exciting to think about. Like just the imagining, like the games that we got excited for this summer, you know, Italy, Belgium, and Spain, Italy, a U.S. knockout game World Cup we haven't had in a long time. By the time, not counting the U.S. women who go out there and dominate
There's
these
nothing to be
games.
worried about in those games.
I know those are also good. Those are good because
We are the danger.
because we have dominance. But I'm just looking forward to like the opening game for the U.S. I'm jumping way ahead here. That's what I do. I dream, but jumping ahead, like the feeling I had before the U.S. Ghana game in 2014 is like something that has not happened since. Just the energy of excitement and nervousness. You don't want to eat before. You're like looking at the lineup. You're watching the teams like walk in on the bus 3 hours before, Ghana dancing, whatever, not knowing what was going to befall them. So the opening game for the U.S., I just can't wait for. And a possibility of knockout games for the U.S. is just, I can't wait.
Yeah, actually having a personal stake in some of these matches.
It'll be 8, and that also makes it more like hard to watch, but it's also the release of excitement will be amazing. It'll be 8 years since the U.S. made a world, more than 8 years since the U.S. have played in a World Cup when 2022 kicks off, which is shocking, and I think will be an amazing moment. So that's most what I'm looking forward to. And the last thing, I know Christian was talking about the young guys. The fact that this is probably the last rodeo for Ronaldo and Messi, who for the last decade have been the best players in the world. And I would make the case for Messi. It's been the best player ever, men's player. And I think that's going to be a special, hopefully for my sake, for Messi, that it goes out on a, I don't really care about Ronaldo. Ronaldo,
You have to respect him.
You can respect him, but
Yeah,
I like the idea of Messi, apart from like US, Peru, or Armenia making like a deep run, the image of Messi getting one last like World Cup final and potentially winning it is like, we're talking like last dance potential, like even I would say like even more impressive than that if he were to do that. And the possibility of that is exciting. And I'm already super excited. Now I want to like go back to our old like 2014 FIFA World Cup game and like play it like 50 times to try to live that out. But any final thoughts? I went like crazy long there because as you can tell, I'm
No sleep till Doha.
no sleep till Doha.
Yeah.
I hope the
Well,
stadiums aren't those like Baku style with.
Oh God,
They will be.
yeah.
They
I
will
hope
be.
they're
They
not.
are.
Well,
They're the
Please.
modern stadiums. They're not going to be like
This is-
the old West Ham stadium.
can we just play every game in Copenhagen or like Columbus? Like, why do we have to go to? Can you name another city in Qatar other than Doha? Because I can't.
Are there
Christian,
other
you probably
cities in
can.
Qatar?
No,
You
I
probably-
can't.
You can't? Okay.
I literally maybe if I thought about it.
You've flown into Qatar before, haven't you?
Yeah, I flew into Doha.
How
What's
was
your
it?
scouting report for the U.S. team? What do they have to look forward to?
Literally, when I was on the plane, I looked out. I had a window seat. I looked out, and it's just tan, desert, sand, and then you just see like a little blip, and it gets bigger. And it's, oh, there's a little city and this vast wilderness. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen before. There should not be human life there. There's a
Let
reason they're
alone a
making it
World
in
Cup. Let
December,
alone a World
folks.
Cup.
Let alone a World Cup.
Life finds a way,
Ah.
people. Life finds a way.
Anything else, James?
AC.
No, the Qatar's a very small place. If I recall, it's like a little pimple on the Arabian Peninsula, or on
It's
the
the
other side.
armpit
Or
of the
something.
Middle East.
I'm adding one team, James, to the list of teams we actively root against.
Actively
Qatar.
root against. Oh,
Qatar.
there's no need to root against them.
No, but I know the players in the field did nothing about the bribing and slipping stuff under doors
Well,
and
we don't know that.
exploiting workers, but
I don't believe
like hosts like Russia, who we didn't really want, like had a decent run. It was like Russia, like it's not great when Russia just gets all this, like they've done some shady stuff. But Qatar, I really hope doesn't get like a quarterfinal run, and like I hope they disgrace themselves. I don't care. Qatar, come after me in the comments. First of all, I hope the U.S. gets them in the group.
Does that mean we
And-
get an easy group? It would be Group
And
A.
yeah, that, and we get to, put them out of the tournament. Just, I don't know. Because we were up for the 2022 World Cup. The U.S. tried to get it and did not. And it went to Qatar.
See what could have happened if we had the Keystone Pipeline? Could have pumped that oil straight into FIFA's pockets. Instead, look, this is Biden's America, people.
Oh,
we can't
Lord.
get World Cups.
Okay.
Look,
I don't have oil.
I told this to James on Tuesday. My real hope is that a news report comes out and says something. We're stripping Qatar of the World Cup and we're awarding it to the USA. US, you
We
have
could
all
do
the,
it.
Qatar is building the cities to put the stadiums in. We've got the cities and the stadiums ready to go. SoFi Stadium here in LA is a candidate to host the 2026 final. It can host the 2022 final.
I as much as I agree with that, and they could also put this in they could in one. I mean, maybe not this easily, but they could easily put this in England or Germany or Italy, easily. But they're not, because too many people have.
Qatar is a small place. It wouldn't take much to disrupt.
Okay, all right. I said
I'm not suggesting. I'm
look,
thinking natural disaster.
I cut it off at I hope their team loses all 3
Tsunami?
games 3-0.
Could
You
cover
don't
the
have
whole
to
planet.
go to a natural disaster.
Cover the
I'm
whole
not asking that.
country.
I'm asking just their team is bad and they get embarrassed on the soccer field in front of their sheik or whoever's up there.
Yeah, but the
box.
country is not. It's not like all the fans are going to be there. It's going to be full of.
Watch. They're gonna
tourists.
have the paid fans that are Qatar, yeah.
Or they'll have a men only stadium.
Oh, that. Yeah, another
Get
reason
ready,
that
folks. Get ready.
I hope they get.
Yeah, what
quality.
are they going to do that? Do
Embarrassed.
they have? Is it Sharia over in?
No, actually, Qatar I think is supposedly
liberal?
acceptable by the Middle East.
Well,
do they let their women walk outside alone?
I guess we'll find out in a year's time.
Before we go too deep down this
So bad.
geopolitical rabbit
How many
hole.
more countries am I going to insult in this podcast?
Yeah, we didn't even bring up Haiti. Anyway,
Rip.
no,
Rip,
don't say
rip
anything.
Haiti.
I'm gonna end this meeting, even though I'm not the host.
I feel in charge.
Okay. I cannot promise that we'll be back with any more podcasts this summer. I don't think we will, but maybe we'll just surprise you. There are other soccer things happening. The Gold Cup is started today. Nobody say the score. I'm going to watch this game later. U.S. men is sending a B team, which I think is important for the real diehard people
Haiti
and
only has a B team.
for Greg
There's no A
Berhalter.
team. Poor Haiti.
There's
They
the
can't catch a break.
Olympics. There's the Olympics, which the men did not qualify for. But I think every time the U.S. women play a soccer game, I think you should watch because they're a good team. They're making history. They just keep winning. And I think you should watch that. So that's going to be the Olympics. The Olympics are going to be kind of weird with no fans, but I'm excited for that. And World Cup qualifiers are starting. In my mind, James, I have this idea that we just show up for the World Cup qualifiers and just check in with updates.
Who's we?
Are-
What do you mean by
Me and you,
have
podcast.
podcast?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
We just
Send
check in
money if
every-
You want that to happen?
No, don't send money. If we have time and, have the
Send money
the
to
will.
our PO box.
So I'm not sure when we'll be back, but I want to thank everyone for listening or watching in this last month and sending questions. I want to thank James for taking the time out of his busy schedule to be with me in the corner of his bedroom. I would like to thank Christian for being a guest on the podcast. Also Samuel and Boone did his part. Also our dad, who only made a couple appearances, but he was efficient in being really good, I think. And if Peru does what we hope they do, we will see more of him in the not too distant future. So with that, thank you everyone again. It's been fun. Hope you all are staying safe and also we're enjoying the soccer, and we can't wait to be back when the next exciting games come around to talk about them then. So until next time, goodbye.